Hello, welcome back and thanks for joining me. In this video, I'm going to go through some things I do to help my kick come through the mix. And I've been noticing in some recent mix sounds I've gotten in for mastering, there's been a few issues. And typically it's either the kick's way too loud or the kick's not loud enough. Outside of that, the kick and bass relationship isn't sounding natural, and there's always sort of a struggle in that low end. You got the kick and the bass, or the bass line, fighting for that lower frequency. So I've put together a little loop of different samples to replicate a short part of a song, and I'm going to go through some things I do in my own process, and then here's some things I'm also sending back in some mixdown feedback to the producer to help them sort of improve the kick and bass, the presence of the kick, and all the above, so we can then lead to a better mix, leading to a better final result in the mastering process. So I'm going to play this loop as it is, and I'm going to go through some things. I've just got a 909 kick, pretty standard. It's not processed. We've got some offbeat bass tones, some percussion loops, and just some effects to make it feel like a track. So let's have a listen from the top. Ending with a nice sweep there. So, if we check the master, what's happening across the board? That is what I like to sort of see what's happening globally across everything. So, around here, we're going to have that punch, the body of the kick, which will be the 909. Down here, we're going to have those bass notes that are triggering down under 60. Then we're leading into the rest of the track. As it stands now, the bass is too loud, and I'd like the kick to come up. So as I said from the start, it's either too low or too high. I'm always just sending back some notes. Hey, let's start with the volume and the levels of the kick. So this kick's on -9 in the mix. Let's take it out. Let's bring it back up. So we're past -9. Now I'm going to go all the way to 0 and above, just so we can see where it can sit possibly, then come back down. Won't need to go louder than that. Let's leave it at 0. A lot more present. Better relationship with the low end. Few things. We've only got one kick here. And when the kick is hitting, if we get this loop here, there's no real other sub-sound hitting at the same time. So that's one of the first points that you can be aware of when you're producing it. The arrangement and structure of other sounds in that frequency range hitting at the same time. When they are hitting at the same time, there's going to be that trade-off. So that's the first thing to be conscious of. When we're looping here, if we solo bass sounds, we've got this drum hit. But when we look at each one, obviously there's a sustain here that's going to overlap with the 909, but that's sort of it's decaying down in volume, right? The sustain's dropping off. When it's hitting, we're not really clashing with much else in the low end besides here. Let's loop this part. A little bit of low end there. That's percussion sound. We've got that bass tone there. But then the kick's hitting by itself. Now, again, following that, this is coming back again, but it's past that main initial punch of the kick. So the awareness of your placement and arrangement of when sounds are hitting, for me, when I'm producing, I always produce in this view. One of the main reasons is for this reason, so I can see when things are hitting at the same time. again, we've got this here. So this group here, these will hit at the same time. We'll get to that. But the kick is more or so always on its own, which is a small win. And we're only working with one kick, so I don't need to worry about flipping phases on, if we had laid kicks or stack kicks. In this example, I'm not going to worry about that. So let's open this back up. Obviously there is some low end in here. Let's bring this up to 0. Sounds a bit nicer. We'll go halfway point. Back to the master, just globally seeing what's happening. And again, when I'm going back to the master and checking Q4, if you're using another spectrum analyzer, I'm not using it to govern my decisions. I'm just like to see globally what's happening, and just using it as a tool to help me move forward as well. But we have this sound here as well. What's happening here? I'm going to go through some of the things I had set up already. Now, we'll loop these 4 kicks. The kick group, I'll bring down a dB. This suck group, I'll leave there. I'll just bring down that actual tone there. Then we've got a little bit of low end here. So the first thing I'm doing, and Q3 and Q4 can do this, which is really helpful. Whatever you've got Q3 on, let's copy that there. Turn this off here. Even though there's nothing really hitting at the same time as the kick drum, initially when it hits on the lower frequency side, we can obviously process this kick. Being a general 909, when it comes to having it be present and strong, there's a few things I'm normally assessing. Is there flab in the kick? How's the punch of the kick and then the upper transient of it? Is all that coming through? And then what's that bass relationship like with the other bass notes that we have in the track? So just on the kick alone, and you saw I was mucking around before, I just got rid of it. But typically the 909, very common and popular. We've got that sort of punch around there. And just confirm it. Depending on your taste, some people might be doing something like that. So we can consciously decide to bring up the actual punch of the kick. Then we're going to have the sub below. Now again, because nothing's really hitting at the same time as the initial part of the kick, we've got some decisions to make. I still might just want to roll off some of that flab. And then depending on the kick source you have, you might find it does have a bit of sustain in that lower side, like 60 and under. And you can decide if you want to keep that or tame it or control it. Off. So we can really have that punch come in a bit more. Another option, you could dynamically EQ this, just so it's not completely static. But in terms of helping it cut through the mix, sometimes the body will be there, the punch is there, but sometimes it's the actual knock, the transient up between 1 and 3K, depending on the kick, what kick you're using. Sometimes that just needs to come through a bit more. Often where it's not strong enough, some people think, the kick isn't cutting through the mix or punching through the mix, so they'll go away and process the low end of the kick. They might be putting low shelves or boosting or even compressing and stuff like that. Sometimes the body in the punch is okay, and it may need just that transient, that real knock, that real tinny part, which is around anywhere between 1 and 3K. So if I exaggerate this, you can really hear that come through. What I like to do, and I do recommend often, and it's very common, is layering it with a thin transient layer. The most simplest way to do that, let's say, is just a closed hi-hat, 909, 808, whatever you like, because we just want to have the higher end of it come through. Now, it's not necessarily sitting around that 1 to 3 range, but having that high end, it's not going to clash frequency-wise with the kick, and it is a really short piece of audio. The beauty of the transient is you can use any sound that has that upper mids high frequency range. You can roll off the low end, and that's how you can also help give your kicks different types of character. I personally like to use effects, all different types of effects hits, because I can then shave that sound with the fades to have it behave like a transient. Make it have the envelope as a small transient like this, which is like a short triangle, and then processing that different. That's how I can help try get different or unique kick sounds as well. So let's bring this back. Now, this is quite low and buried in the mix, but just layering a sound like that has that higher frequency, blending it with the kick, and then furthermore, you can group process that together, can help it just cut through nicely. I might just open this loop up. So this transient layer, this hi-hat, it's off. Very clear now. We'll go all the way. Obviously that now is just a layered hi-hat on the kick, which we don't really want, depending on your style, but my approach to this is having it buried in the mix where you can hear it, but it more so sounds like it's part of the kick. Maybe it's part of the sound design or the layering of that. So let's go 13. So the track, the arrangement's staying the same, but having it hit at the same time as a kick can help it perceive as we know when that kick's hitting in 4/4. Even though the track is 4/4, we can clearly hear that because we can hear the kick. That can help just identify that to the ear and make it appear to be stronger. Now again, going back to what I was saying, what you're using for that transient can completely change the attitude of the kick, the style of the kick, the whole direction of the track. But this is just the general concept. A small, thin layer of some sort that has the higher frequency in it, and then shaping it to a short piece of audio just to help with the envelope of the kick itself. So we've consciously rolled off a bit of the flab from the kick because we've seen in the other bass elements we're going to have 100 and under sorted, which we'll get to. But we want to bring out the actual body of it. We've got the transient layer to help it bring up the higher side of it. And we've also brought that volume up from its original position. Now, when we get into here, we've got this sound. Within this, I've already done some fucking around. So let's go to the B side. Now, as we were saying before, it's not really clashing at the same time as anything, but we do have 80 hertz pumping through. Up in the mid-range, and we've got this high range. So we can consciously decide what we want to do here. Now, I know I'm doing this solo, you should do it in the mix, but I'm just demonstrating, and then you can do this yourself. Yeah, that's quite, if I go to there. So I've just consciously dipped a bit of this sound, and depends on your style. You might want that to be quite a highlighted part of the sound. Let's say you do, let's do that. We'll bring it up in the mids. But what I'm doing is we had the 909 kick up around here, so we can just duck some of this. And it is hitting on itself. When we get to this suck group, we've got this percussion sound that hits at the same time as this other kick, but already a few decisions to make here. So let's copy this again. If we turn this off, again, we knew we had the other sound up around 80, but it's not hitting at the same time as this. So now we've also got to work out the kick above it. What I've done here is around that same area as the 909 kick. Yeah, I got rid of it, hang on. The other thing about Q3, Q4 is anything that has Q3 or Q4 on it, you can go in and put it on. So if we go to the kick track, so in this analyzer section here, we can select the kick, and then we are going to see, oh, sorry, hang on. Kick 2, yes, correct. So I had them named the same. So what we're going to see now in red is the kick drum, that the channel that we've selected, which is the 909 kick. So we can sort of see that sort of clashing there. So we can say, we'll make this static, open up the bell shape. We can bring this down to let that 909 come through, because we know we need the low end here from somewhere. So we can duck the kick here, let the 909 come through. Even though it's not exactly hitting at the same time, we will have this sustain. So then you can decide how intense you'd want to duck that. When we get to here, we'll get to that low end in a moment. Now, this part here, we've got, 300, 200, pretty much sort of for the low end. So depending on how you want to treat this, the low end here isn't that loud. It's quite faint. So you could do something like that, or you could turn it off and actually just roll it out completely and consciously decide to have it more as an upper percussion sound. And highlight this here. Whereas if we turn this off, we're going to have it hit at the same time, but we already know what's in the other frequency channel. So you can decide, maybe you don't need it at all. When we get to here, I'm going to take this off. So 909 can come through there. Then we've got this sub down here. Now the other one that's playing at the same time, just dynamically EQ'd, just get rid of that harshness here. But again, we've got this sound here. Now, the low end in groove 1 isn't that loud. It's more so the kick that's coming through. So which one do we want to take presence? Let's open this loop up. We'll go here. Now, we've got that sort of kick around there. This here, I'll just do it here because the groove 2, there's nothing in it. When we go to groove 2 to suck 1, We're up around 40. It's quite dominant. We sort of do that so we're avoiding the suck one at around 40. Maybe highlight that. So having Q3 and Q4, you can select if it's on every channel or whatever channel it's on, you can select it and check that red line for the analysis of the other frequency range on the other sound. That will help you understand, along with visually looking this way, what's hitting at the same time, and then what's that trade-off, where's that trade-off going to come from? Especially if they share the same frequency range and they're sharing the same play time or note time. As back to the kick, in terms of helping it come out, starting with level, adding a layer if it has to, if it's needed. But then it's within itself, I personally like that transient coming through, and I love air in my kick drums. I've said that many times on this channel. So we've done some housekeeping here. Let's turn this off. I love the mag. I use EQ4 a lot. The 650 bump, 2.5K shelf, and then I love the air. Just gonna open it up a little bit. Let's have a listen. Sub. Bringing that back down. And then along with the Pro MBs, let's turn this off. Oh, let's turn that off. Turn that off. Turn that off. I do this in mastering where, because I've got the stereo file, the kick and bass might just be a little bit off. If it's in a pretty good pocket, I can probably control and get it to where I want it on the stereo file. And what I'm looking to do, even though you can still do this individually or on a drum bus, is, let's turn this on. We can help get that kick and bass relationship right. Now, this is individually on this 909 kick, but the concept would be compressing that lower end. Then bringing it back up. But then on the kick band, flipping that to expand. Get the range. You can hear if I go extreme. We just really want to have that punch come out and control the low end. Furthermore as well, might be a bit too much. You can have some more movement by side chaining. So we can have the sub compressed down as the kick expands up. And you can also audition that sound. So you can hear what we're using to help trigger that expansion on the kick drum itself. And back on. Let's loop this back. Turn the kick down a bit. I've added some volume there, obviously. Another thing to do, which is helpful, once you've made a few decisions, going back to that master. And then, like for example, taking the kick out, just to sort of see how everything's behaving without the kick, and then visually seeing it too. And then vice versa, when we get down to so now I've muted that second kick from the suck one. You can hear it there. So that can help you make some better decisions with the leveling. So I don't like that. There's a few different ways you can treat that. I was rolling that off there. I've sort of dipped 70 because of the other bass tone. Then from there, once that kick and bass, it's in a bit of pocket and you're happy with it, I would then go through and then look at everything else I've got in the track as well. This is hitting at the same time as the groove. And just having all that awareness and consciousness. So, wrapping that all up, kick drum wise, always leveling, just getting that volume right, taking it out of the mix, bringing it up slowly, getting to where you think it's right, take note of that number, go past it, exaggerate it, bring it back down, get it to taste. If you've processed the kick and essentially you're happy with it, but it might not be cutting through the mix, and when I say cutting through, I mean maybe that upper transient, that upper knock of the kick itself. I find if there's not much room in the kick itself with whatever frequencies are in there or the harmonics of it, just like the 909, it sort of dips up after 200. That's where I look to layering a transient layer of any kind. And I recommend that you try and experiment with those different types of layering to try and get different kick tones. Secondly, the arrangement and placement of where the bass is hitting. In this case, we don't have a static running bass line. That would be different. I'd probably introduce some side chaining to help duck the kick because the bass line will be hitting every time the kick's hitting in 4/4. Visually looking as well to see what's hitting and how long it's hitting for. A lot of the stuff drops off in sustain based on the envelope of the sample. Using Q3 and Q4 on other channels with the red analysis line to basically see what the other sounds look like and when they're hitting at the same time. That alone can help you going back and forth from channel to channel. You can do it within the one plugin and make those decisions consciously and then leveling from there. The kick processing past that point, a million options to do it. This is a very simple way just to sort of try and have it pop out more. Different types of EQ. I also use the, what's it called? I've gone blank. But the mag, using Pro and B to control it and use expansion to give it some more movement. All great ways to help your kick stand out of the mix a bit more. So, I hope that helped. If you're having troubles with your mix or you need mix down feedback, send it in to me. There's a link down below. We can go from there. Until next time, thank you very much.